Hello and welcome to another Dev Diary for Crusader Kings 3. This time, it is number 17, Governments, Vassal Management, Laws and Raiding. So, I'm hoping for some good stuff here because, governments is kind of an important part of any game where you're controlling a government. Vassal Management, if this was, EU4 or Imperative Vassals are a secondary concern, but in CK, Vassals are kind of everything, so more important stuff. Laws, always important to have some laws, yeah, sure, and raiding is like one of the most fun parts of CK2, so I'm expecting good things. Let's scroll on down and have a look. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Meneth. You may know me from the CK2 Dev Diaries or the Paradox Wikis, but for the last couple of years I've been working on CK3 as a programmer. Today we're going to cover a number of topics closely related to government types, governments themselves, vassal management, laws, and raiding. Let's start off with a familiar concept from CK2, governments. For the player we have three playable governments, feudal, tribal, and clan, which each have some significant differences in how they play. So again, you're not going to be able to play as the Merchant Republic style, which was a lot of fun in CK2, but it also had some problems, I guess, and they want to really do it justice in a future update, is what I'm expecting, at least. So, yeah, fair enough. The feudal government type is based on European feudalism and is heavily based around the idea of obligations. You owe service to your liege, and your liege owes you protection in return. It's the most common government form in the game. Feudal realms play pretty similarly to CK2, focusing on claims and inheritance more so than the other government forms. A new addition in CK3 is feudal contracts. Every feudal vassal, except barons, has an individual contract with you, rather than obligations being set realm-wide. These contracts have three levels, low, medium, and high, with medium being the default. High will provide more levies and tax at the cost of an opinion hit, while low provides less but improves opinion. Higher levels are usually better, though perhaps not if you're at risk of your vassals revolting, but cannot be imposed unilaterally. So I guess it's a bit like the sliders we had, not sliders, but like the buttons that were basically on a slider, where you could ask for more money or levy from your various vassal types. But in this case, it's you get more money and manpower or men, and it's a cost of opinion instead, and it isn't for everyone entirely, it's for individual vassals. So I can imagine that becoming quite... It's either going to be very set and forget or very micro-intensive as people try and squeeze the best that they can out of every vassal they can. But, if one of your vassals, I don't know, maybe you are zealous and they suddenly pick up the cynical trait and they're really disloyal, they hate you now. So you want to, kind of say, okay, well, we may have a difference of opinion when it comes to theology, but you just give me a bit less levy and a bit less taxes, and then we'll let it slide, sort of thing. Yeah, okay, fair enough. You need to have a hook on your vassals in order to increase their obligations unless you're fine with all your vassals considering you a tyrant, but you can always lower them. As a result, this means you can significantly increase your power if you're able to obtain hooks on your vassals. Perhaps a bit of judicious blackmail might be in order. That's an interesting way of doing it, so it's not just click it and, he doesn't like you as much anymore. There is a cost of tyranny unless you have these hooks, so that really does make the spy mastery style of play a little bit more powerful if you want more levy. Spy master plus a military lifestyle seems to be really powerful. They kind of synergize really quite well. Anyway, we've got the feudal contract here. So we've got low, normal, and high, showing the amount of ducats, the amount of men, and the opinion. So high gives a negative 20 opinion. It'll be tyrannical, so you get 20 opinion for everyone. You gain 35 stress because you are generous. They still haven't spoken about the stress system yet in a dev diary, but just going back to what I was told in the interview that I did back at PDXCon, if you do things that are against your own traits, so for example, forcing someone to give you more stuff if you're generous is going to give you stress because it is the antithesis of what your trait is. I would imagine he would lose stress if he put it to low instead of normal. So, effects on Duchess Matilda of Tuscany. She gives high feudal obligations. You can choose to use a hook or not. If you use a hook, obviously you won't get the tyranny hit. Yeah, no, I like it. That's good. The UI is... I've seen some people kind of think the UI is a downgrade in a way. It's less flavorful, but honestly, I really quite like it a lot. So I'm gonna have to disagree with the people I've seen really hating the UI. I think it looks pretty damn neat. And you can tell as well that it is slightly translucent, so you can see the map, the Bavarian flag there, some kind of... It looks like the Danish flag, honestly. Right there. Yeah, I like the UI. I think it's good. So, modifying a feudal contract is what we've just seen. Furthermore, we have the clan government form. This government is the rough equivalent of the Icta government in CK2, although in CK3 it does have a more feudal bent on it than it did previously. The clan government type is used by most Muslim realms. This government puts more emphasis on the family rather than the realm, with most vassals being members of your dynasty. Obligations are heavily based on opinion rather than being contractual, with happy vassals providing significantly more taxes and levies than unhappy ones. A happy family is a powerful family. So that seems to be a lot like the old feudal system. Like if your old vassals in CK2 were less loyal to you, then they would give you less money and less taxes. So yeah, this definitely seems to be taking heavily from that in this particular aspect at least. Clan governments also have access to the Clan Invasion CB, which can be used once in a lifetime at the highest level of fame to invade a kingdom, providing a powerful boon for a well-established clan ruler. Well, I mean, do you really need a Clan Invasion CB when the No CB is the best CB? Because everyone knows No CB is the best CB. And on that note, if you want to hear us talk a bit more about this, the Dev Diary and all the other Dev Diaries, then tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. British time, we will be discussing all the Dev Diaries on the podcast, nocbcast.twitch.tv/nocbcast. So nice little segue into talking, or just plugging that. But anyway, back to the Dev Diary. Finally, we have tribal realms. Much like in CK2, these have their own tribal holding type, providing more troops but less tax. Additionally, most tribals are able to go on raids, which you can read more about below. Tribal realms are unaffected by development and cause non-tribal realms to have lower supply limits in their lands, making them a tougher nut to crack, but reducing their influence as the years drag on. Tribal realms also pay for men-at-arms using prestige rather than gold, allowing smaller realms to punch above their weight. Lovely. Tribal rulers base their obligations on levels of fame rather than on contracts or opinion. The more famous your ruler is, the more troops and money your vassals will be willing to provide for your pursuits. Finally, tribal rulers have a once-in-a-lifetime subjugation casus belli, allowing them to forcibly vassalize an entire realm. So you choose the biggest dude that you can potentially beat, and you subjugate them all. Lovely. As the game goes on, you can eventually reform out of tribalism, becoming a clan or feudal realm instead. So I guess this is Vassal Management tab. Okay. So you can see the vassals. You've got the powerful vassals. Only the powerful vassals there. Okay. 60 vassal limit. Okay. You can see how much money you're getting and how many levies you're getting from these guys. So he's giving you 187, or is this 187 and this is what he's actually giving you? I imagine this is 197, and if you get him loyal, then you'll get the full amount, perhaps? So maybe it is still affected by opinion. Although you seem to be giving more of your potential levy than this guy, and he's more loyal than you, so maybe there's a different contract going on? Nope, they're both on normal. It's on normal for all of them. Alright. So it'd be interesting to find out what what is causing this guy to give so much more men. But you give less money than this guy. I'm going to have to look more into this. I hope that they do a bit more of a, in-depth look at what all this is. And also, there's this. What is this? Probably feudal obligations lowered for some reason, whatever reason. Also, it seems like people are giving you a lot less money than you would expect, which is a little bit interesting. To get an easy overview of your realm, we in CK3 have the Realm screen. Let's start with the Vassals tab of the screen where all your vassals are shown. This gives you a clear overview of where your levies and taxes come from, who might be a threat to you, and allows you to renegotiate feudal contracts. This is also where you change your crown authority or tribal authority, which I'll talk more about later in the dev diary. Lastly, the screen shows you powerful vassals. Much like in CK2's Conclave DLC, your realm will have some powerful vassals. These expect to be seated on the council and will make their displeasure known if that is not the case. Alright, fair enough, lovely. So this is the domain screen. Is this what you own personally? That's the domain tab, okay. I think this is what you own personally. Because this is, yeah, your domain, then it'll be, guess, your vassals, and then succession. We just saw the vassals one, now we're looking at the domain. So you own, I think this is the case, anyway, you own the county of Klingenberg, county of Würzburg, and the county of Bamberg. This guy can construct a building, actually they all can. This has got an empty holding. I guess that's why it's highlighted, maybe? Or maybe he's already clicked on it and that's why it's highlighted. So you've got 6 out of 6 holdings. Fair enough. Okay, lovely. Then we have the Domain tab. This lets you easily inspect your domain, showing you where you're earning money and levies, and where you can build more buildings. It also shows the level of development and control in the counties you personally hold, letting you easily tell where you can make improvements. Okay, so it's a bit like the Outliner, but more detailed, and it's in its own little place. Okay. Finally, we have the Succession tab. Due to being a bit of a work in progress, I'm afraid I can't show you a picture of it right now. Here you can change your succession laws, see your heirs, check what titles, if any, you will lose when you die. If you hold any elective titles, you'll be able to easily get to the election screen from here. Alright. Now, with all these mention of laws, let's go through what laws exist. We've trimmed down the number of laws from CK2 as much of what used to be law is handled in a more individual level now, but some still remains. Like in CK2, we have Crown Authority for feudal and clan realms, and Tribal Authority for tribal realms. Higher levels of authority will unlock mechanics like imprisonment for tribals, the others start with it, title revocation, restrictions on internal wars, and heir designation. However, increasing these levels will make your vassals unhappy. Tribal authority is significantly less powerful than crown authority, representing how tribal governments over time gradually got supplanted by feudal and clan governments. So we've got succession law here. So you can do confederate partition succession, high partition succession, oldest child succession, youngest child succession, and house seniority. So partition succession is, upon succession, all titles held by the late ruler will be divided among their eligible, whatever, fuck it. With the player heir always being given the primary title, realm capital, and any direct de jure titles associated with it. Okay. Other eligible children will be given secondary titles, starting with those of the same rank as the primary title. If none are available, they'll instead be giving lower ranking titles. To preserve this balance, children cannot be preemptively granted titles they do not stand to inherit. Ah, that's a change then, I guess. Okay. So where is the gender succession laws? And also, I mean, they've definitely changed the names of these. Like, what's the matrilineal and patrilineal succession? That's not it, isn't it? I forget what the actual names are, but yeah, there was like, you could pass down to the oldest male, the youngest male, and then you could do like an equality one where it didn't matter if they're male or female. This doesn't seem to be there. I don't know why. Okay. Then there's succession laws. To no one's surprise, Gavelkind is making a return, damn it. Though we've renamed it to Partition to make it more obvious what it actually means. I'm sure there's going to be a mod to rename Partition back into Gavelkind, like, immediately. This is the default succession form for most realms in both 867 and 1066. For added fun, there's now 3 variants of Partition. We've got regular Partition, which functions like Gavelkind in CK2. Your realm gets split roughly equally between your heirs. Any heirs that end up on a lower tier than your primary heir become a vassal. However, many realms start with a worse form, especially in 867. This is Confederate Partition, which will also create titles of your primary titles tier if possible. So if you as Norway have conquered all of Sweden, but destroyed the kingdom itself, it will get recreated on your death so that your second heir becomes an independent ruler. Tribals are typically locked to this succession type with some exceptions. So yeah, it'll be an impetus to form a feudal kind of, upgrade to a feudal kingdom so that you can get rid of that kind of crap. Finally, we have an improved version of partition, High Partition. Under High Partition, your primary heir will always get at least half of your titles, so it doesn't matter if you got 2 or 10 kids, your primary heir will get the same amount of land. Alright, fair enough. We've also done a lot of tweaks to the internal logic of who gets what titles, which tends to lead to far nicer splits than in CK2. Border will of course still happen, but to a lesser degree than before, thank God for that. Then we have the other succession forms. There's Oldest Child Succession, replacing Primogeniture, Youngest Child Succession, replacing Ultimogeniture, and House Seniority. So these are the ones I was trying to think of. A notable difference from CK2's Seniority Succession is that under House Seniority, the oldest why can I not say this word? Eligible. The oldest eligible member of your house inherits, not of your entire dynasty. Okay. We also have a number of variants on elective succession, ranging from feudal elective to princely elective, and a handful of cultural variants. Each of these have different restrictions on who can vote, who can be elected, and how the AI will select who to vote for. Additionally, we've also got a full suite of gender laws corresponding to the gender laws in CK2. These are male only, male preference equal, female preference, and female only. Yeah, fair enough. I guess they're underneath these at some, or in a different place. There must be a different menu. So, before we go on to rating, let's talk about the renamings. On the one hand, it's a bit iffy that they're going away from historical names for these succession laws. Like Primogeniture and Ultimogeniture, these were what they are called. This is the accurate term for what is going on here. On the other hand, I know personally that whenever I wanted to change succession law, I had to hover over the little question mark and read what the fuck I was switching to every single time I did it. I never learned them. So on that, I think there is it's much clearer. It's much more player friendly, I guess. It's less historically friendly, but it's more player friendly. And honestly, there's going to be a mod. There's always going to be a mod. There's going to be a mod that changes Oldest Child Succession back into Primogeniture. There's going to be a mod changing Partition back into Gavelkind. You know it's going to happen. So on that note, while I am iffy about it being changed, fuck it. Just use the, guaranteed to exist mod that changes it back. Like, it can't be that hard to change a succession title. Like, you're not changing any mechanics here. It's just literally a word. You'd probably just need to change a few words in a single text file. Like, it's probably not a massive deal. So yeah, it's fine. Like I said, a little iffy that they're doing it, but at the same time, it would help me quite a lot. And there's going to be a mod, so fuck it. Anyway, going on to raiding. Finally, we have raiding. If you're a Norwegian like me, sometimes you feel your Viking blood coursing through your veins, the noise of it drowning out everything else. Times like this, there's only one solution. Go on a raid. Makes total sense, Meneth. Total sense. Fans of pagan gameplay in CK2, that would be everyone who plays CK2, will be glad to hear that not only have we implemented raiding in CK3 as well, we've made some improvements to it to make it more fun to play with and less unfun to be on the receiving end of. Yeah, this part here, I fucking hated being raided, but I imagine that the people being raided in real life, 1200 years ago or whatever, they probably hated it quite a bit more than I do when I'm playing like in England or whatever. So on that note, it being really annoying and pissing me off is kind of the point. The core system is very similar to CK2. If you're a pagan or tribal ruler, you have the ability to raid other rulers' lands. To do so, you raise a raid army and march or sail over to your target. Only the Norse can raid across sea. Other raid armies will simply be unable to embark. So, I have an opinion about this, as I have opinions about many things, but I have an opinion about this, and that is that every country should be able to raid. Because it fucking happened. It happened. It just did. You did not have to go to war with a country for you to send some dudes across the border to steal another dude's sheep. It happened. The raids between the Habsburgs and the Ottomans, that was going on into the 1500s, or probably even further than that. They would raid each other and, sack the land and steal sheep and people and stuff, money, whatever they could. And that wasn't immediately declaring war. You didn't have to declare war to start raiding your enemy. It was just part and parcel of life in a border area with an enemy. That's just how it worked. So for only tribals and Norse tribals, Norse pagans, to be able to raid, I really don't like. So what I would do, and I don't care about balance in this scenario, what I would do is have every country be able to raid, but you'd only be able to raid if you're going across a border. And then only, the Norse would get access to using, your fleet to go and raid across the ocean. That can be limited to just the Norse, but I don't see any historical argument to say that, a petty kingdom in England can't raid another petty kingdom in England. It fucking happened. So, yeah, I want to see everyone be able to raid. That's just me. So, we go to the rally point, raise local raiders. Okay, so they're completely different than just raising an army. You just raise raiders instead. Okay, then. Or maybe you can raise an army and then still click a button to turn them into a raiding army, but this would just remove one of the buttons, which I guess is perfectly fine. Raise all armies that are the closest to this particular rally point as raiders. If only one rally point, all armies will be raised here. Time to raise is 2 days. Okay. Yeah, because there is a new way of raising armies as well, isn't it? It's not just you raise all your armies and then from all over the kingdom they slowly march, getting fucking murdered by an enemy that is already, in your land. Now it's a case of you raise them and then no troops appear, but then your army starts slowly filling up as, I guess, troops sort of teleport to you. It just takes a little more time to teleport. I'm okay with both systems. This is certainly less annoying. But yeah, I guess that is how it works now. So, raising here in Oslo Silslar, whatever. Would take 2 days to raise all the troops. Fair enough. So, once at your target, your army will start looting the barony they're in. This is a pretty quick process, but during it, your army will be unable to move, preventing you from running away from any counter-raiding force. Now that is very different. That is very, very different. That is very different. I mean, let's go on to the end of the paragraph and then we'll go back to it. This change makes it a lot simpler to deal with raiders if you've got enough men and can raise them quickly enough, as the AI just won't immediately run away. Alright. Okay, so looking at this from both angles. On the one hand, as a defender, great, so you don't have to, because raiders getting onto boats, almost 100% of the time, they were going to be able to get onto the boats before your army was able to intercept them. That happened pretty almost every time, let's say. So for the defender's point of view, this is great. And I guess that is part of the less unfun part of being raided. On the other hand, if you are the raider, you can see an enemy army coming. You want to get your dudes back on the boats, but you can't because they've already started raiding. That's going to be mighty annoying. Like, that's going to piss me right the fuck off. Especially considering, look how long it's taking. Right? Whether this is going this way, or whether it's going up, if it's ticking up, or if this red bar is ticking down, there's a lot of fucking time left. It's like, I guess almost a third of this bar is filled. So it's either going to be, this entire thing is 60 days, and it's ticking down this way, and there's 19 days left. Or it's ticking up, and this is 19 days, and this here has been 10 days. So either we're going to see it taking a shit long time, or it's going to take a shit long time to raid somewhere. And you can't run away? Oh, I don't know about that. I really don't know about that. I don't like that. No, really not in favor. That's awful. As someone who really likes, the Norse playstyle and raiding, that is just a slap in the face. I'm not in favor. I'm not a fan of that at all. No. Naturally, they choose Lindisfarne. Because why wouldn't you choose Lindisfarne? Of course you would. So, yeah. Yeah, no, I don't know about that one. While in CK2, raiding was done on a county level, in CK3 it's done on a barony level, which makes sense, because barony, it's basically done on the smallest divider of a piece of land. So, yeah, that makes sense. It's on a barony level. Another difference is that in CK3, raiding no longer uses the siege mechanics directly, but rather a similar system where things like siege engines do not have an impact since you're raiding the countryside, not a heavily fortified castle. What if I want to raid that castle and steal all the goodies within it? I guess, did the Viking raids really do that very often? It was mostly cities. They weren't really sieges as such. Cities and monasteries and villages where there really weren't too heavy fortifications. Because why would you risk your dudes? You're there for money, not blood. I mean, you take blood if you need to, but like, the objective is money. Yeah, okay. Another significant change is that if you beat a raiding army, you receive all the gold they're carrying. This means that even if you cannot respond instantly to a raid, it's still very much worth it to beat up the raiders. Like in CK2, you also become immune to raiding by that enemy for several years. Alright then. I actually didn't notice that was a thing in CK2. Probably because I never got my army beat because I was able to run the fuck away. Anyway. Just like in CK2, a raid army is limited in how much loot it can carry based on the army size. Loot is deposited once the army is back in friendly lands, after which you might either disband or go raiding once more. On the quality of life side, we now show on the map what provinces have already been raided when you have a raid army selected. This makes it easy to see what places to avoid. Hovering over a province will also tell you how much loot raiding it would provide. Alright, no, I like that, that's pretty cool. So, whoever you are, you raided the fuck out of England. Just absolutely ruined the place. So I guess this here would be the Tyne River. This one here would be the Tees. So my hometown is around about there. Yeah, that seems about right. Northern England in its natural... Fuck you. You twat. Oh, alright. That's all for today, folks. Tune in next week to learn more about how war functions in CK3. Yes, more war. I like war. War's great. Yeah, no, very... This is going to be a divisive dev diary. So how about we go onto the forums and see what people are saying. Oh, apparently we're going all the way to the top first. There we go. And onto the forums that show only the dev responses. and hopefully we'll have some good responses to show people. So, going all the way to the bottom, blah, 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 right, there we go. So, we've got 22 disagrees to 30 agrees, 43 helpfuls. That does seem like more disagrees than usual. Anyway, will nomads be considered tribal or clan in the base game? So, generally tribal, alright. If an army defeating raiders earns the gold, can this be exploited to take gold from your vassals? That is, you wait until the raiders have looted your vassals' land, then crush them to gain your vassals' gold. You can do it, yes. Your vassals won't lose gold, but they'll have a recently looted modifier on the affected baronies, which does indirectly affect you. It will definitely be worse for your vassals than you personally. So generally you don't want to be raided, but if you're going to be raided, make sure it's your vassals, make sure you get the money from it. This sounds like a wonderful change. I would like to have it be so you choose to lock in your army to raiding rather than being automatic upon arrival. I can imagine quite a few accidental stack wipes if one isn't paying attention and lands their army right as their target is marshalling forces around. You can actually turn off the automatic raiding as well. While off, they just won't raid anything until you turn it back on. I guess that is sort of... I don't even know if I like that either. That's not really a workaround. Because at the same time, it's like, you land your army in a foreign country, that in itself is hostile. Doesn't matter if they're doing anything. I don't know. I really don't know. Raiding has been quite disappointing in this dev diary, not gonna lie. I guess there could be some sort of function where the vassals remember they were being raided by that particular set of raiders and request you giving them the money back. If we start seeing it as a significant issue, then we might decide to do something like that. So far, it hasn't been a problem in our tests. Well, probably because your testers aren't Spiffing Brit, for example, who will absolutely abuse the shit out of that, because that's just what he does. Long Game Short says, can you build buildings from the domain tab? That would be very convenient. Currently not directly from there, but the holding view can be shown while domain tab is shown. Clicking on a holding in the domain tab will open it, so you can get there pretty quickly, though it certainly would be neat to be able to do it directly, so maybe that will happen in the future. This not being there has bothered me in CK2 for a while. With partition, though, is the way it's done fixed in comparison to CK2. Had a case where the primary only got one county while the secondary got all of the counties. Who is partition available to? Is it some N tier for tribal governments? And can we expect more options in the feudal contract? I'd like to be able to actually do compromises on some things. Like, for example, religious autonomy, allow the vassal to practice his own religion, with you not being allowed to try and convert his domain. The vassal should probably start converting or getting some hooks on you. To move to the first part, you can convert his domain. If the vassal is of a different religion, you can freely revoke that title, stuff like that. Alright, partition generally produces less border gore than in CK2, and a more sensible partition, good. The case you mentioned should be rarer, alright. High partition is unlocked later in the game. How that works is something we'll likely talk about in a later dev diary. On release, more options are unlikely. So, that's for this part. Since the first start date is 867, won't you already be at war with England if you play most Norse starts instead of raiding them? Will Norse still be able to raid in the 1066 start? Plenty of Norse rulers in 867 aren't at war with England. Yep, fair. Thank God we're finally getting Confederate partition to accurately represent the way Gavelkind worked in many of the places where it was used. Literally, the first mod I make is going to be to disable all of the types of Gavelkind to prevent early game blobbing. Hopefully that's easy, or even better, there could be a game rule for it. Modding is easy. What happens when the vassal dies and the heir inherits? What if the heir was already a vassal duke under you, so now there's, say, a double duke? Is the contract inherited, or does it default to normal? That's for, he's talking about the feudal contracts. If I remember correctly, inheritance will override an existing contract if it causes a change in liege or increase in tier. So a duke dying and giving his stuff to his count or unlanded son will cause the contract to still apply. But if the son was a duke or king, the son would keep his own contract. Alright, so the higher tier contracts override the lower ones for inheritance. Fair enough. In CK2, your troops couldn't loot money more than one county away from realm without boats. You can still pillage, that was typically less money unless you were a nomad. Since, say, raiding is on a barony level now, are you only able to loot baronies immediately adjacent to your realm, or has loot and money meter been implemented on a per raiding army basis? Right now, there's no distance restriction on where you can raid, but you will run into attrition if you go more than one county away from your own borders. Maybe losing 5 to 10% of your raiders is worth it to do that. Right now, it's a choice you can make. Fair enough. Quality of life improvements off the bat for raiding feels great. No, it doesn't. Any restrictions to know of, like things not being able to raid allies or tributaries? You can't raid your allies, and you can't raid inside your realm. I guess tributaries can't kind of count as in your realm. Will the feudal contract levels be moddable? They can be modded. You can add more of them and change how the math for levies and taxes work. You can, of course, also reference them elsewhere in the script, which allows you to do things like base the ability to imprison on the contract level. That's cool. Worth noting, though, is that the levels are currently a single set. You can't have multiple toggles or similar at the moment. For example, you wouldn't be able to make an imprisonment allowed separate from taxes paid. Okay. We'll be able to raise our tribal vassals or call tribal allies for raiding. We don't use CK2's calling of tribal vassals as allies. They raise troops normally instead, as we feel it works better for what we're trying to do. You can't call allies to help you raid. How moddable is all of this? Contract, blah, 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 everything. Most of it's highly moddable, though there's bound to be some details that aren't massively moddable. The core mechanics of raiding are not particularly moddable, since the logic is in code, but there's parameters you can change, like some of the AI weighting, some loot, amount of loot available, how much you can carry and such. Who's able to raid is fully moddable. Why do dev diaries point out less border gore as something positive? Because it fucking is, PRO. The map should be a mess. No, it shouldn't. I'm not saying... The map should be historical, and I mean, yeah, historical. Yeah, fuck it. Historical is kind of a mess. I mean, it wasn't that fucking bad. Like, some CK2 border gore is just ahistorically awful. There'll be plenty of mess, just not as much from nonsensical partitions of your realm. Good! Still get realms split up by vassals inheriting from outside the realm and so forth. Okay. We'll be able to turn it on anywhere, only in our own lands, as it is in CK2. It's on a raid army basis. It can be done at any time, though it won't interrupt an already started raid, of course. You'll still be able to unable to move till it's over. Only ceasing to be a raid army is limited to when you're in your own realm. Alright, so you can turn it on anywhere, but to turn it off, you need to be home. Honestly, don't expect them to be playable day one. Probably talking about Byzantines because of this. I mean, why would you expect the Byzantines to not be playable? That's dumb. Okay. Modding question incoming. Can I add more of these laws for individual contracts? Yeah, he answered that earlier. Clear the goals to expand the fan base, and partition or male preference are way easier to understand and remember. Yeah, that's basically what I said. It's done exactly to lower the learning curve, and baffled how it can be perceived as the opposite. Plus, wasn't Gavelkind mainly used on the British Isles? A generic partition is more fitting if it's applied to all of the world. The name Gavelkind was inaccurate outside the British Isles. We'd rather have a clear, unambiguous, and easily understood name, which is, rather than one that's highly regional. Yeah, no, that's good. It's a shame that this was necessary. As Meneth already replied, Gavelkind was never accurate outside the British Isles. It seems like people got really into not liking the name changes. Jesus, big one. Overly simplistic feudal contracts. Now, it's worth noting that the various levy tax laws in CK2 were blanket laws affecting every vassal equally. This wasn't very accurate, and it also removed both the character aspect and agency from the system. CK3's vassal contracts aim to more accurately represent the feudal structure and also create more drama between lieges and their vassals. I can see that. While playing, you'll be able to really feel when a vassal's contract is set to low or high. There's a much greater disparity in power between realms in CK3 than there was in CK2. Even a realm as powerful as the Holy Roman Empire can be bested by a mere kingdom should the HRE have lost a few liberty wars, which usually result in lowered contracts. If you manage your contracts well, you can really punch above your weight. No, I can see that too. That's going to be pretty interesting. It's a bit like how England was able to fight with France, because England was a lot... In this context, England had higher contracts than France. France had very low contracts. So, you know, England was able to punch above their weight. France had many times the population numbers, but we still managed to beat them in the 100 Years' War for a while, until we didn't. Until Joan of Arc, basically. That being said, we understand your concerns, and while we can't promise that we'll change anything for release, we promise you that we'll take a look at it for the future. Alright. No succession type for Byzantium or the Roman Empire. Yeah, so Byzantium definitely is its special case. I imagine maybe they'll probably do something later on. Byzantium is its own beast and requires a lot of thought to do right. CK2's solution was not optimal. We didn't want to repeat what we did there. Just slapping an elective variant on it and renaming its government to Imperial doesn't do it justice. We'd want actual mechanics to represent the intricacies of Byzantine politics. All I can say at this point is whenever in the future we choose to deal with Byzantium, we'll make sure we do it well. Well, I mean, you could start by not calling it Byzantium. Call it the Eastern Roman Empire. Or Basilia Romaean. Something like that. Just don't call it fucking Byzantium. Jesus. But yeah. No, I'm fine with that. Like, if you're making an update to a game, making a sequel to a game, and the previous version had the government that wasn't particularly accurate but was still unique, and you want to really do it justice, but you don't have time to do it for the release of the game, or it's not the biggest priority, then yeah, absolutely save that for when you really can focus on it, when everything else is the things that affect everyone should come ahead of the things that affect only a few. So I'm okay with this. Do we at least get vice royalties in the base game, even without imperial electives starting with everything being VRs? It's going to give a nice bit of flavour for the Eastern Roman Empire. Vice royalties was one of the main examples of a feature from CK2 that we absolutely did not want to carry over to CK3. Damn it, I loved vice royalties. Not only was it way too micromanagement heavy and spammy, but you also had to constantly interact with the system to play optimally, even during stressful times such as during wars. Again, if we choose to make vice royalty feature post-release, we're going to start from scratch and do it properly. That's the right way to do things. I'm on their side for this. I'm not on your side for how you dealt with raiding, but on this, I'm on your side. Vassal still needs to occupy important seats on the council instead of honorary roles, even if they're completely incompetent. It's a conscious choice as it creates dramas and interesting choices. Do you want to have an actually competent steward, or bite the bullet and put your angry but powerful vassal in the position to placate them? Also, the council roles come with very powerful bonuses to the holder, so there's no surprise that they want to hold them. Can invasion potentially being OP, depending on requirements to use it? It can be very hard to get to that point, much harder than the invasion requirements in CK2. Essentially, not every ruler will reach that level of fame, and those who do probably get to work for it. Another omission about clan government form is that vassals will insist on having an alliance with their liege, which will most likely have to be arranged through marriage. The power of clans rises and wanes as the years pass. At their peak, they can challenge the powerful feudal realms where their contracts are negotiated favorably, but at their lows they're more than susceptible to both factions and being picked apart from the outside. That seems cool. I like that. In that sense, clans are somewhat similar to how feudal realms played in CK2. Speaking about raiding and embarking, would you be able to embark if your lands are adjacent to great rivers, the Volga, Danube, etc., all navigable rivers that serve not just for raiding, but for transport and commerce? If you can raid across sea, you can also travel on major rivers. Awesome. So republics and theocracies are not playable. We knew that already. Yeah, no, I mean, whatever. How is it possible to not include unique government types for two of the most popular nations of the time, Byzantines and the Holy Roman Empire? The Holy Roman Empire does have princely elective, a succession form we put quite a bit of effort into, and that suits the elective framework we've created quite nicely. It's almost as if CK3 would have been a prime opportunity in which to do this. If CK3 was a game about playing a strategoy in Byzantium, then we definitely have done it. Now, the primary goal of CK3 is to make a game about medieval drama and intrigue with a heavy focus on characters and their interactions. While it's fair to say Byzantium was a hotbed for court drama, we have to make calls during development. We simply can't do everything we want. Fair, fine. Be honest, you grew tired of Gavel King being thrown around. That and Gravel Kind. Oh my god. I'd never even heard of either of these. I've always heard it being said Gavel Kind. I never heard anyone get it mistaken. Do vassal levies come from their own pool, or are they coming from the void like in CK2? Meaning raising feudal contract reduces vassal power. Levies are taken from vassals themselves, unlike CK2's magical troops. Good. That's better. This means that vassals will visibly get stronger or weaker based on the contract they have, and the civil wars are much more dangerous as the vassals instantly get all of their contractually obligated levies returned. Alright, fair enough. That was a bit of a ride. The comments here, apparently people got really salty about, you know, not having a Byzantine specific government. And you know what? I love Byzantium. Honestly, they are just... I'm a bit of a Byzantophile. A Byzantaboo. I don't know what the fuck I'm saying. But yeah, I do like playing as Byzantium or the Eastern Roman Empire, or even just the Roman Empire in general. I mean, it's fascinating. Of course it is. But if you're not going to be able to do it justice, if you don't have the time to do it justice, yeah, fucking save it for a future update. We're living in a society where games are not... the game you pay for on release is not the game you play in a year's time. For almost every game, they get updates. They're planned that way. And probably, or maybe, the plan for CK3's post-release support is, you know, adding a very in-depth, detailed, accurate, and fucking fun Byzantium system. And if that's the case, good. I'd rather they wait and do it justice than do it now and have it be subpar. I mean, surely that should be what everyone's thinking, right? That can't just be me. But whatever. That's my opinion anyway. Damn, this video has been a very, very long one. So I'm going to leave it there. That is governments, vassal management, laws, and raiding. And a whole lot of salt in the comments as well, apparently. So, yeah, I'd love to know what you guys think. So please do let me know in the comment section below. Let me know what you think of all of these different systems. Do you agree with me on what my opinions are? Do you not? Do you disagree? Leave it all down there below, and I will be sure to read them all. If you want to keep in touch with all of the CK3 news and updates, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.